Well, hello guys. It's 8 o'clock, 1806, 2017. Sorry, I'm literally just came back from the beach not that far ago, so I just had to grab a quick shower and, you know, just get myself up to scratch. We finally had some sunshine in UK, so, I managed to steal a few hours. Couldn't help it. So I'm, coming along live a bit late and, a bit not prepared and all together. But today I wanted to talk about the results of UK elections. Okay, so again, I'm not sure that many people are gonna come and join me, but this one I'm actually gonna make a bit of effort to share it with a few people, including my friend Keith, who recently admitted that he did not vote on this election. You should have, Keith. Bad man, as Donald Trump would say, really bad, really bad. But unfortunately, but it's obviously everybody's own choice whether to vote. I'm gonna move the glass, but I got myself even a drink. Talking about the elections, it's gonna be a hard topic, let me just get it open. Bit of energy. And obviously, who won elections, who lost elections, who's got the biggest gain, and who managed to save their asses or did not save their asses, or who, in my opinion, have fucked up beyond repair. And let's start from, what seemed to be the winners, as in the Conservative Party. When the Conservative Party was going to the elections, to be honest, they were kind of in a win-win situation kind of thing, where if they lost, they would have won because they would have had to deal with Brexit. And the stuff they were talking about, Brexit, obviously, if they have won and gave the stuff they were talking about, then they would have said to everybody, look, we gave you what you wanted, that's what you obviously voted for. If they have lost, then they would have been like, well, you guys, you didn't give us the mandate. Even at the start of the last week, I think they had a very big chance of saying to people, look, we won the election, but we had to, make a deal with UDP or whatever the fuck they are, another 10 people from Northern Ireland. And we had to do this and that, and obviously, you didn't give us the mandate to get the proper Brexit, so as shit would have hit the fan with Brexit, whether we want it or not. They would have obviously could have said, look, that's the mandate you gave us, that's what you get, so we fucked, we're all being fucked because you didn't vote for us. So, you should give us a bigger mandate next time. And they tried to do this. They tried to play this card really hard. So any election, any kind of outcome, they were not losing, but they were at least, not losing. It was like they were kind of either winning or kind of win-lose situation. Whereas that by losing this one election, they could have still had a long game to support that loss and actually rebound from it. And then the Labour came through, and what many people say are the biggest winners in this election, even the fact that they lost. Again, same situation. They've actually managed to turn around and talk about policies, which was kind of good, and obviously brought in quite a bit. And obviously Labour started talking about policies. They completely moved the conversation away from Brexit. They said, look, let's deal with Brexit as it comes. Let us talk about how we deal with internal situations. And obviously they kind of, by moving the conversation away from Brexit, they were gaining more votes, they were getting more support. And also they were kind of putting that, poisonous topic away from themselves. So if they won and they would have had to deal with the Brexit, they would have said, look, you know what? We promised you this, and this, and now we're going to look at Brexit and see what's the best thing we can do, and then would have probably then just turned around and looked at all the options, and most of them were kind of poisonous it would be very hard to come up with the Brexit strategy that would work. So I think the best option they might have had is to agree to remain in Europe only under slightly different conditions. So, but obviously we'd have to look into that, like, you know, things like, again, you know, maybe forcing like some sort of minimum wage all around Europe, so ensuring that the freedom of movement is supported by reasonably equal living conditions, so that people don't feel that they have to come to England, you know, to make the money and then go home and then use whatever, like making £500 from here would have been equal like to their like 3 months wage or something like this. So obviously all of that would have been working fine, but we don't know how they would have done it. But I think that would be kind of the best they could have got out of it. But again, it's kind of in the kind of area of just kind of thinking about it, what could have happened. So, but again, they've managed to kind of come to this, into this kind of situation where they have not won the election, so they don't have to deal with the poisonous, you know, side of Brexit things. And obviously they talked about the policies, they didn't talk about Brexit. So they have managed to kind of pull the direction to those things and making people say, okay, you know, we need this, this and this. And what happened after the election, obviously, all of a sudden the Conservatives, after having to make a deal with these guys from Northern Ireland, it was a Unionist something party, you know, again, you know, they all of a sudden started to have to talk about, like, you know, okay, the country wants to change. The Labour has got lots of votes, and this party wants kind of, as far as I understood, some similar things. So all of a sudden, you know, the Conservatives, the Tories, they were talking about, like, you know, the lack of the money tree. And all of a sudden they said, look, you know what, we've grown the money tree, you know, we have grown the money tree, and we might start, you know, doing some more proper investment and things like this. And I think at the start of the last week, you know, until the big fire in London, again, to mention those people, and, you know, we all kind of feel sorry for them, obviously, you know, as a person, I don't know what it would be to survive something like this. Don't think I've ever been in a situation quite as bad where you have to go down 20 stories in a burning building, you know. I wouldn't wish it onto anyone. Doesn't matter whether you have a safe passage through these stairs or don't. It's still full of smoke, still scary as fuck, and the building going on fire, and everything that happened there, obviously. And that has really turned the situation. So basically, if the Conservatives lost that vote, if they lost that election, the fallout of this fire would not be as horrible for them as it is. I hope, for the life of mine, I hope people will not forget about this fire for the next 20 years, and will always come back, and I hope it's going to come to haunt the Conservatives to their graves. You know, until, you know, like when in Bible, when was it, Moses, he took the Jews to walking around the desert until the whole generations have died out, the ones that have sinned by making this golden bull, and until those generations have all died, he walked them around the desert before he brought them to Israel. Well, I hope this fire haunts the Conservatives until all the generations of Conservatives that have been in the Parliament die out. I honestly hope so, because it was their reckless policies that brought to that, you know. I mean, again, it has been started by previous Labour, but I think these guys are kind of the Blairites are probably kind of going into the past very quickly, and I'm hope again we're going to see a big changes in Labour Party. But I also hope that the people, the Conservatives, that actually took the economy to the stage where things like this can happen, where something which is known to be dangerous to people, and is being knowingly put onto a building, even if it was not, it's still not forbidden in England. The building materials they use has been known through US and Germany and some European countries. As far as I understand, they have been known to cause this kind of flash fires. So something like this has been knowingly put onto a building just in a chase to make some extra buck from the rich parts of that district to be able to sell their buildings at higher price. If the difference in cost that they said would have been only 5,000, and that's been done by Conservatives under Conservatives. So I say the Conservative Party, for something like this, they deserve to be walking through the desert until the generations that have been at the parliament at that time completely die out. I mean, we're not talking about going to leaving the parliament and then obviously becoming the lords and going into the lords chamber. No, they have to be out of politics. They don't get to be the lords. They don't get to stay in the parliament. They just get to die. I'm not talking obviously to die physically, but I'm talking about dying politically. I'm talking about dying socially, as in not being part of the social life. They have to disappear. They don't get to be part of the ruling class anymore in any way or form or shape. And I think that came back to Conservatives to haunt them. And the way they've also dealt with this fire, sorry, I just got water still coming down my face, but the way they've dealt with this fire, the way Theresa May have dealt with this fire, the way the rest of the party dealt with this fire, again, they deserve to go down, and they deserve to go down hard. It's my personal opinion. I'm not gonna say that I'm a perfect person. Look, I'm all great and stuff like this. But even if Theresa May did not have what it takes to go and speak to people, there should have been somebody from the Conservative Party who would have went, look, I'm a minister for buildings or whatever, whoever, and look, we came here to help, or at least find out what you need. Do things like this. Yes, we can't put everything on just a prime minister. I mean, she's like, she's like a dead woman walking, as they said, so they're now trying to shove any wrong decision onto her. But the rest of the Tory party should have been there, they should have gone out, they should have get the things done, and, they didn't, so, sorry. They didn't, and for that, they deserve a very bad fate. And this came to haunt them after this election, obviously, because, if it was Jeremy Corbyn, for example, in charge, then a lot of more would have been aimed, more attention would have been aimed at him and at the Labour Party, obviously being the kind of new socialist party, like the revamped socialist party. There would be more attention on them, on how they would have dealt with this, and I think Tories would have had a far less fallout, but they didn't. They will, they deserve to get this fallout, honestly. Not just the fact that they brought to this kind of, obscene chase for money. And this chase for money did not start even with the Blairites. It started with Margaret Thatcher. We're talking years and years ago, and it's just been building up and building up and building up. Obviously, Tony Blair has helped that. Less social, more kind of liberal, and and the last nearly 10 years already of the conservative pretty much government, pretty much conservative drive to even more profit, more profit, more profit, even more profit, like give us more profit and we'll give you like, whatever. So, these things have been building up, and obviously kind of what happened already under them. And the controls have been just loosened and loosened and loosened. But overall, let's say this situation with the building brought up something which is kind of covered and uncovered the same subjects which many people were talking about. Again, like I say, our hearts do go out to people who suffered in the fire, but it also comes out things like, for example, there is another 16,000 families. Just think about it, 16,000 families in London alone, which they're working families, so father and mother are working, but they cannot afford proper accommodation. So they always move from and forced to, back and forth to temporary accommodation. They cannot afford a place to stay. They cannot afford to put in the big deposits required for a place to stay, like 4 or 5 months at the moment. There are many people requiring, it's like, and with the London prices, you can imagine you can as well buy a fucking house, But obviously, with all this, people can't afford it. Did, obviously, people still kind of not noticing it. But the talk has already been by the Labour about, maybe taking over the houses which are empty in the borough where the fire has been, and giving them to the people that are obviously been which are victims of this fire. People that survived the fire, who are still, at the moment as I'm talking, still some, apparently, as far as I heard last, they were still sleeping in tents, still sleeping in different, areas where they had to sleep on the floor, still not being settled in, yet there's like enough buildings in that borough alone to settle every family from that high-rise building. So there's enough houses, enough properties to settle quite a few people around that area, And it also brought up something which I think is gonna come to haunt Tories as well after this, which is to say, it's kind of all came in together and they've all been hit by that. Is the fact, like I said, it's this another 16,000 families, working families. We're not speaking about people who are unemployed or like single parents, like actual family, mother, father, children who cannot afford a place to stay in London. And yet there is around 20,000, as like what I've read in one of the newspapers, there was 19,431, but obviously, give or take a few, obviously, but something tells me it's more than 20,000, the properties. So it's like 19,400 something. That's what they found. That's what they already know about. Of the properties which have not been used for years now. We're talking from year to 2 years and more. We take out the properties which have been used like for 1 or 2 days a year, for example, then we'll probably say we're gonna go in huge numbers, So there's huge numbers of properties in London alone which need to be brought back onto the market as a letting properties, as for sale, whatever. And Labour have started talking about this, and as a result of these elections, what I will do is I am looking to start a petition as soon as the petition website obviously opens, the government petition website, about the fact that we need to take those buildings. If the buildings have been left empty, they have not been let out, they just sitting there empty and just kind of taking over space. The buildings or the properties, they should still stay the property of the people who own them. What should happen is we should have a government-run trust which will come in and take over the running of the property. So the property is going to still be a property of a Chinese citizen, Russian billionaire. We don't care, any one of them. But the property is going to be taken over by a trust, a government trust or a private trust, but which will deal only with these kind of properties, which will have a certain set of rules, and it should take over these properties, and they should let them out. So they should allow the families to rent them, or councils or whoever. So the people who own these properties, if they're not using them, if they're not letting them to other people, then we'd expect this one identity in the city, or I don't know, in the region. So let's say one for southeast, one for southwest, so on and so forth. Take over these properties and let them out. So bring them back to the market, and then they'd obviously take some share of the profits, and some share of the profits should be given to the people who own the properties. So we shouldn't use the properties for obviously not for nothing at all. These people should be getting some money for it. Obviously it shouldn't be that much, obviously, but the properties should be let out at reasonable price. So we're talking like 10-15 pounds for a square meter of the property, so that the government can when they rent, even if the councils say, look, this is a big property, but there is a family of like 8 people. Yes, these families still happen, even in UK. Maybe not all of them are British born. Some of them are like, of Middle Eastern descent. Maybe they've been British born, but they're of Middle Eastern descent, which is, they have more children, typically. So they need a place to stay. So obviously we can bring them in and put them into that property. And then obviously the council pays for this property for them, if they need help. But obviously it's still not oversized. It's not overly huge, So, but we rent those properties out. And I think Labour have started talking about this in the view of the big fire, obviously. So it started getting them a few more points, like I said. With the fact that, obviously coming back to election, so but I said these are big topics, and I'm probably going to come back to them again and again and again whenever I talk and discuss, whether it's like the latest affairs, or whether it's something from history, or whether it's some of the more other things, like topics. For example, like I said, I wanted to talk about this failure of political correctness, and the problems with kind of racism and things like this. So obviously a lot of these subjects are going to come back again and again. So the Labour has started talking about, and they started to gain more support as well. As far as I understand, if they have the election within the next 4 months, Labour is expected to wipe the floor with the Conservatives. But the Conservatives are still in the kind of situation that once they fuck up, they're still in that situation where when they will fuck up, it's not if, it's a when they will fuck up the Brexit. They will say, look, yes, but you did not vote for us, and I just hope that things that happened in the last few weeks just gonna come back to haunt them. So this is like obviously another UK party which obviously got a couple of parties, which are the Greens, which have supported Labour, and a couple, I think some other smaller parties kind of said, look, we're gonna connect with the Labour and we're gonna work together just to keep the Conservatives away. Obviously the UDC or UDP or DUP, I don't know, something unionist party. Sorry guys, look, you're from Northern Ireland, it's a small party, and I'm not that clued up on the names in things to still remember you. I'm sure in the next few years we're gonna hear more about you. So if you support your party and you're happy that they've got into the government, and they did force the Conservatives to become slightly more conscious about the people around them. So we're gonna hear about you, and I'm sure people, will remember your name over the time. So they won quite big because they obviously came back onto the big scene of politics rather than being just a Northern Irish party. They're the party that all of a sudden have this chance to decide quite a lot in the fate of UK. Probably decide a lot more than Lib Dems could decide when they hooked up with Conservatives. I think Lib Dems have lost big time when they hooked up with Conservatives. And obviously this time, the little party from Northern Ireland who are all for British Union, and all of a sudden they get more influence, like their 10 people get more influence on the national UK politics than Lib Dems had the influence during their time in coalition with Conservatives from 2010. So these guys have won actually quite a bit. And if they use this time to make an impact, because they can and they will, I hope, because they seem to be pushing for more socialist ideas, but more down kind of take care about our people, things like this. But obviously I don't know them too well. They're obviously not very well presented in the fact that they did not do too well during the conflict in Northern Ireland, but obviously I don't know them well enough, but obviously it seems to me that once they got together with Conservatives, the Conservatives all of a sudden, like I said before, grew that money tree which they couldn't find. So we'll see how they show themselves. We'll see how they show themselves on the big scene, whether they can get rid of the bad, the bad energy they had before about them. So as people were saying, they like half terrorist party. Well, we'll see how they show themselves. So, but I think they have managed to get that chance, and getting that chance is quite hard. Doesn't always happen. Like I said, if we see on how the Lib Dems have used their chance in 2010 to 2015, if we see how they've used that chance, we see they basically annihilated themselves pretty much. And then obviously these guys, they got this chance, and we'll see how they do. So I think that by far out of the winners, they're probably the biggest winner so far. Who else has won from British election? The new French president. I know it sounds crazy, but I think that Brexit and the calling of the new election in UK just before the French election, all of a sudden the what's her name, Le Pen, basically the woman that has been brought up by Russians, she all of a sudden she's like very nationalistic. Let's drop the European Union with the France, can do it all ourselves, And all of a sudden, more people from France have seen the mass that shit like this brings to your country. And I think what we would have seen is the fact that many French people voted against her. They not because they kind of really like the other guy, but because they saw the result of what she brings. They saw the result of Brexit. They saw the mass that's been brought by Theresa May by calling this snap election, because they, like I said, if it wasn't for what happened this week, for the fire, for all the fallout from that event, the Conservatives would have had win-lose situation, or lose-win situation, basically. They had an excuse for everything except for what happened. The way they reacted to this was bad. So the French, they saw this mess and they just went, look, we don't want this, We need to change Europe, but by leaving Europe, we ain't gonna change it. And the new, young, active French president, who was said, look, we want to be part of European Union, but he did say, I think, on his first election speech, on his first speech after being elected, that we really like European Union, but it does need to change. Shit needs to be different now, you know. We have to move it in different direction because the way we've done things so far is not working. We're getting fucked up. So he won from the British elections. It's surprisingly, but they won him the seat. Because the British election showed the French that, look guys, you know, this is what you get when you vote for this. Okay, that's what they saw, and this is what they voted against. So Marie Le Pen, that's the woman that lost. Don't ask me the name of the French president. If he ever hears this video, I hope he forgives me as well. I don't think that he will, so, but yeah, I don't remember his name. But he did very good from this election. So, who lost? Well, I think, you know, lost is kind of a big stage. You know, the Greens have done quite well out of this because what they did is they said, look, we're going to get together with Labour, we're going to support them. Where places we win, the Labour supported them. So they showed quite a good kind of move to that. But there's been a party which has fucked up. Yet again, they have. In the last 10 years, it's not the first time they do it, and that was Lib Dems. Now, I don't know how fucking stupid do they have to be. They already have had 2010-2015 fiasco. They have just went just down. They've lost a lot of support, they've lost a lot of seats, you know, so what would they have to do is they have to fight for things that brought them down. And you know, what would have given them, why do they fuck up? So they fucked up 2005, 2010, because they said to everyone, look, we want to give people free education. And they didn't. I mean, they fucked it up because they made it such a big thing by adding it on top of their usual manifesto, running through with that, and obviously saying, look, if we win, and this was a big if, so they thought nobody's gonna call them on that, because they obviously lost, and then they went and joined the coalition, and obviously, you know, they said, look, we brought this, we brought this, we brought that, but everybody who voted for them, who put them in this coalition, voted for them, especially the younger generation, voted on this big specific, you know, subject. Free education for everyone. Like, just, they could have dropped the rest of the manifesto if they have got the free education for everyone and then just gave everything else to the Conservatives. They would have done reasonably well out of that, but they didn't. Okay, and they've signed they have signed their death warrant. And I think that anybody who's seen this election and the way they've been continuing doing what they've been doing by saying, look, you know, we only want the European Union, we don't care about anything else, and yet they could have fixed what they broke in 2010. Labour in their manifesto was talking about, it was part of their manifesto which Greens signed up to, some independents signed up to, so saying that free education for everyone, right? Just get the Tories out. Let us bring the country back to the normal order. You know, let's deal with Brexit as it comes. We don't want to talk about Brexit right now because, you know, let us tidy up the shit we have here. And once we do that, you know, we can probably get a better deal for Brexit anyway. Or, like I said, a very good deal would be just stay in European Union, but introduce some rather heavy fucking changes to it. No. Lib Dems could not take it. I mean, you know what? I was listening to them and I was thinking to myself, what a bunch of uptight assholes they are. I mean, we're not talking about this screw up with, like, whether this gay sex is a sin or not. I mean, for the Christians, most of the Christians obviously have never read the Bible, I think, or if they did, they would have known that the Sodom and Gomorrah were not destroyed because man shagged each other. The Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because man tried to rape the angels they come to check the area out. Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because people were forced to do the acts they did not want to do. Okay, to sodomize someone, okay, it's not to have anal sex with them, it's to rape them anally. Okay, that's what it stands for. At least that's the story I've read in the Bible. This is how I understand it. So they were not destroyed because of they were like, man sleeping with men or women sleeping with women, They were destroyed obviously because when the angels came there, a bunch of men got around the building and they said, look, you know what, give us those men, we're gonna have our way with them. And when this Jewish guy said, look, you can have my daughters, they said, who gives a fuck about your daughters, we want those men and we're gonna have them, we're gonna allow, if they don't say yes, well, we don't care, we're still gonna take them. Right, so obviously most of the Christians kind of haven't read the Bible. Most of the priests haven't read the Bible too much either. They just used to this old way of talking about it. And, I'm kind of go like, okay, you know what, people, if you want to believe that, that's what you want to believe. For me, that is what I see. This is what I kind of read. I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. I'm not saying you are. But obviously, if he says, look, I have Christian faith, it's like, and then how can you be a liberal then? I don't know if you have to choose whether you're Christian or not. So I think he left as leader of the Liberal Party after this election. Well done for him, claiming that his Christian values didn't agree with liberal values. It's like, how the fuck did he manage to survive until fucking 50 with those two? I don't know. But somehow he did, and then once he obviously been weighed and measured and found wanting, he decided that, look, I have to pick one, finally, well done, mate. Sorry, guys, just talking about politician makes my mouth dry. And kind of gives me some rather unpleasant aftertaste, so I'm just having to cover it up. So, and then what they do is they, instead of saying, look, you know what, we're gonna drop the Brexit for now, we're gonna fix the stuff we broke in 2010. We're gonna fix it, we're gonna join this union with Labour, because their manifesto has got pretty much everything we'd like to have. And then obviously when the time comes to Brexit, decisions, then we're obviously going to try and influence that from inside the coalition rather than being like outside it. So they went on their own. They just pretty much screwed Labour basically. Any chances Labour had of winning. I was sitting there, I was listening to the results of the elections, and then you can listen and you go like, they would name some town and say Labour 19,200, Conservatives 20,300, and then they would have Lib Dems 2,000. Okay, so if Lib Dems, they were not winning in that part of that, they had no fucking chance at all, 2,000 vote, that you don't stand a chance. But them not withdrawing their candidate, not saying, look guys, you know what, we're not winning here, but we want to get that thing to work, we will withdraw our candidate, and we're gonna help you out of this, nobody stops people from doing tactical things to get strategical targets. Ask any military commander, like, for example, if you have been attacked, your strategy is to defend your country, right? If your country has been invaded, your strategy is to defend your country. But your strategy is to get the enemy out of your country. It's great strategy, but the tactics of doing so depend on battle-to-battle basis. So the strategic target of the battle is, for example, stop the enemy from crossing the river. But there is so many tactical things you can do to stop the enemy from crossing the river. You can blow up the bridges, or you can put the artillery in such a place where it's hard to hit, but it hits the bridge directly, so that when the enemy tries to cross, they just get hit. Or you can put a minefield, out on the other side of the river, so that when the enemy comes in, they have to spend ages and ages trying to dig up every mine there is, while being shot at by your people. There's many ways you can do it, right? Like, very many ways, Like, you can, you can have a building which is half fallen apart. It sits like half a mile away from that river, but it's got a very good view of the whole river, so it's like a strategic, they would say strategic point. Yes, great. But the tactics of running this point are still down to the stuff on the ground. And the Lib Dems, they did not have what it takes to say, look guys, you know what, we fucked up. But this is our chance to fix what we broke. And they decided to try and play the big boy game by small boy rules, basically. Instead of saying, look, strategically we want this, but we're willing to try and fix the thing we broke. And in many cases, as I said, as I was listening to the results of the elections, where Conservatives were taking a place by 500-600 people from Labour, or it was like Labour coalition candidates, so it wasn't always Labour, it was somebody else as well. But they were taken from that, the Conservatives would take the place, whereas there's like X amount of people who voted for Lib Dems. I mean, I understand those people are hardcore Lib Dem vote and stuff like this. I do understand them. They believe in a lot of stuff Lib Dems do. But sometimes the kind of the governing body of the party has to say, look guys, you know what? We would like to win, but we don't stand a chance. Please, 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 vote for these guys, because we promised, for example, the people the free education or something like this, Yes, we want to push for for Brexit to be cancelled, right? But we don't have the strength. I mean, Lib Dems knew that from the very beginning. And they have fucked up so big. I don't know how more badly they could have fucked up. They fucked up 2010. And then they go on and they fuck up 2017, the time where their presence would have been felt for the country. It would. I say, maybe the result, I say, considering what happened in the last week, the fact that Conservatives, that it will come to hit the Conservatives again and again and again, I hope they will pay for it. But to be honest, I don't want the bad things to happen and so that they come to hunt Conservatives. I don't think that it's a great thing that somebody died just and then build the Conservative laws on that. No. It's the last thing any sane person wants. It's the last. But coming in, they could have been annihilated. So many times I've heard when I was listening to the election results where I say the Conservatives could have been wiped out if the Lib Dems have done the right thing. But for the last, say, more than 10 years, they seem to be intent on doing the wrong ones. I don't know why do they have a suicidal instinct? Do they think like, oh, you know, obviously some people, sometimes I find myself in this situation where you've done something really, really well. And you have this kind of, and all of a sudden you start screwing yourself up. You start doing the same mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, you know. Doing all the silly things you can do, and you fuck yourself up. I mean, I've been in this situation, you know. I've been in this situation just recently where, you know, I had a job interview. And I had a job interview. I've done really well in the first interview, and then I had the second interview, which was a technical interview. And personally, I screwed up on the simplest of the simplest things. You know, just you know, I shouldn't have done this. But I was like, you know, yes, I had such a great first interview. You know, I was like, I really want to work for this company, and it seems to be going so well. And then I get to the second interview, and I just destroy myself completely. I think that, you know, Lib Dems, somehow they've caught themselves in this drive of destroying themselves completely. You know, they had a good few years before that, you know, obviously with the New Labour, being New Labour, you know, screwing a lot of things up themselves. And obviously the Lib Dems were getting a bit up, and they got this up, and then they take the wrong decision after the wrong decision after the wrong decision, wrong thing after the wrong thing. At some point of time, I was like a few years ago, I was listening to talk about Lib Dems going into coalition with Labour, like sometimes in the 70s, and they say that that coalition with Labour has pulled the Lib Dems apart, and they took a very long time to rebuild as a party. And it was like until like 2000s when they started to make an impact again. And I think as soon as they've reached this impact part, all of a sudden they seem to be taking the bad decision after the bad decision after the bad decision. And the thing is it's not that they're pulling the party apart, is they've destroying the party. It's like this decision of not fighting, not joining, and not saying, look guys, you know what, let's do the right thing and worry about the Brexit when all the right things are done. Let's put the country in the situation where the country, you know, the situation inside the country is very stable. You know, it's reasonable. Like, we have the free education. We have stopped, like, the contracts for the like companies, railway companies and other public transport companies. We stopped those contracts. We brought those things back into government. We have started sorting out the situation with the housing. We have started sorting situation with the fact that nearly 50% of people live on the poverty line in UK. We have started sorting all those things out and putting them back in order, you know. So once they would have done that, and that started to work, after that, that would have been what got the country going, you know, get people the confidence in the future again. You know, that would have helped a lot. And instead of that, they chose to fight and, you know, say overall, looking at the results, they basically screwed everyone up. Right? If any Lib Dem supporters watching this video, guys, you know what? You need to take the leadership of your party, including like the Vince Cable, who recently said that the old guard is back in town just because the Jeremy Corbyn has been elected again. You know, it's like, but this is the old guard which took all the bad decisions. You have to take your old guard. You have to find new leaders, guys. Otherwise, your party is just gonna continue just going down the drain. You have, I know it's been the biggest screw up of this election for me, is Lib Dems. Again, you know, I hope it's gonna come to haunt them. I just hope that these guys, until this parliamentary party, the Lib Dem side, parliamentary side of Lib Dems, until they're all gone, until they just out of the party, out of the leadership, they should not be allowed. These people should not be allowed to be part of the Lord's chamber. Just out and about, just completely gone. Until they're all gone, until the Lib Dems completely change that generation, I think that should come to haunt them again. I say it's the biggest screw up in the whole of election, and they have costed most of us this country. Okay, guys, it's like conservatives haven't got a clue how to put the country together. They just all of a sudden they're gonna try and find the money tree, when all they should be doing is actually fighting those who take in the money from the money tree. Doesn't matter how much money they print, because obviously if they still have to pay out billions to their billionaire mates, the money's just gonna go through the fingers like water. Not even like sand, like water, like air. Just zing, gone. You can't hold the air in your arms; it goes through it. So, like I say, the Conservatives is going to end up in the same situation. They're just going to end up printing more money, giving them back to their billionaire mates, and just making it look as if they're being more. They've got the money trick sorted. No, they won't. They will drive the country down. Say so far, but what thing I hope is going to happen is that we're going to have an election. Like I said, we had a hung parliament. I wasn't sure how hung it's going to be, and unfortunately it's not that it's hung, it's the fact that it should be hung. We should hang this parliament, drop them, throw them out, and have a new election. And we should, because obviously we can see the results of what's happening now. It's still a mess. The government is hardly strong and stable. Yes, we have to talk with the Europeans and say, look guys, give us half a year. Let us sort this shit out. I'm sure many people in Europe are going to be more than happy to kind of say, look guys, you know what? We don't mind that, because they already moved the starting date of the talks. I mean, they're going to be starting them tomorrow, apparently. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not expecting a lot of good things. But I think, overall, the result of this election is that we need another election. It's kind of weird to say this, obviously, straight after election. But usually you kind of say, oh, we need another election because there's like criminals or non-criminals. No, we need another election because the parliament at this moment, it's just not going to be able to take the decisions. It's just going to be hanging in the middle. It's going to be hung, but it's not going to be hung. It's going to be hung by the neck. Just dangling from the ceiling of the tower, trying to hold onto the rope so it doesn't strangle itself. That's our parliament at the moment. It's just nowhere. We're not gonna have strong and stable leadership. So again, the people who lost most of all out of this election, and now we're not talking about the parties, people who lost most of all out of this election is us, the people. It's funny and sad at the same time. I don't know, like, obviously I'm kind of laughing, but it's a laughter of desperation more than anything. I'm looking at what's gonna happen, at what's happening, and just looking at possible results. And to be honest, I think, last few months I've been trying to find a job in Europe because of Brexit. Now I'm even more inclined to look for a job in Europe and try to move out before the shit hits the fan. Not just because of Brexit, but because of the election results. We are in a situation which is, well, the building is on fire, and unfortunately, we don't even have a fire brigade ready to take things over. The royal family, I don't think they'll ever do that. Who else? I don't know. Who else? We need, the people who lose the most are the people. because we're now stuck in the situation where there will be people blowing on the fires of differences, of our differences, the stuff I've been talking about for quite a while, the lack of integration between different areas of society, even different districts, and they will try to use all that, and it will be dirty, it will be disgusting, it will not be nice, and we need to change that. I think the starting protesting movement saying that, look, we need a new election, especially after the influence of like I said, the tragedy last week. I think nothing, not even the terrorist attacks, would have influenced the results of this election as that far. Terrorists we can deal with, but something like this, which happened on the watch of the people who are in government now, they had to pay for this, they have to pay for this, and I say, with the election being the way it is, I think, we need the new election as the people, as the society, as the country, and no matter whether we stay or leave the country, because obviously some people might say, oh yeah, but you want to leave the country, what do you care? It's like, look guys, I've lived in this country for nearly 20 years, or 17 years, more than 17 years. I came here in 2000. I was still young, rather clever and rather stupid at the same time, probably still the same, clever in one things, very stupid in others. Well, that's how people are, that's how we're all. But I do know quite a few people in here. I maybe not the best friends with them, but I still, my attitudes toward them are still nice, even whether I go, whether I stay, doesn't matter. I would never wish anything wrong to those people, okay? Same as all of us, even if somebody's not our friend, we're still normal people, we don't wish anything wrong to our neighbors, unless we have a bad neighbor, but, again, quite often we just want to settle it with them and say, look mate, just, can you try to be a good neighbor? We don't want to go and shoot our neighbors, do we? We don't want to, we don't want to have a fire in the building just because we don't like our neighbor, We sometimes want him to shut up, but that's, that's how it goes. Some of my neighbors probably hearing me talking now through the walls want me to shut up, and they just still be nice and polite and letting me talk. So, it's all of this, this kind of attitude. So we're all normal people, whether I move to Europe or whether I stay in UK, if I move, I still gonna have people I know here, people who I think, great people. I don't want anything wrong to happen with them. Even my friend Keith, who I was talking about at the start of the video, who did not vote, I have to blame him for that. I have to point him out that Keith did not vote. I still don't want anything wrong to be with him, If I leave the country and he stays here, I don't want him to go having to lose his job or lose his chance at family and kids, or whatever, I don't want him to lose any of that. I want him, to be able to live a normal life, Or I don't know, people I go play basketball with, Yeah, we don't always get along, we don't, some of them tell me that I can't play, okay, their problem. But, I still wouldn't want anything wrong to happen to them, same as, some of them, I don't think any of them would want anything wrong to happen to me, it's just normal. So, I say, for me, I think the biggest losers are so far are we, the people. Whether we stay, whether we go, whatever happens, we're still going to be the people, we're still going to be together, keeping together, we're still going to keep in touch even years after years of being those parts. And I say, the result, the final word of this video is the fact that as a result of this election, we need the new election. And I hope that within the next few months, just after I managed to put in my petition about moving the properties that have not been used back to the market. Hopefully they will have the time to look at that petition. I will, otherwise I'd have to raise it again. But obviously, until that time, after that time, but even, I don't know, maybe straight away, we need the new election. We need the parliament to work as one. I hope that in that election, Conservatives don't win. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Labour, but so far they have had the most reasonable policies for the inside of the country. And I hope that bringing the country back to normal will help the country to deal with the issue of Brexit in the best possible way. Like I say, I'm not sure whether it will happen or not happen, but at the way it is now, I know it's going to be a disaster, and I don't want that disaster. So again, new election, I hope it happens. I hope we as a people of this country, as the citizens of this country, yes, I do have a passport, yes, to answer your question. As the citizen of this country, I hope that when the next election happens, we actually win, no matter which party comes to the power. But I think as the people, we'll be able to win, and we'll be able to bring the country back to the way it used to be, like many people who voted for Brexit said to me. I want it to be the way it was in the 80s. So I hope we will be able to win and get the country back to normal again. So thank you very much. I'm going to share this around some people. I hope they will listen to this and share it again and share it with their friends. And then obviously, we continue talking about different subjects. If you like this video, do find me on Yuri's video blog on Facebook, and also you look for me at Yuri Semenikhin at Yahoo, or not Yahoo, at YouTube. I will be sharing my videos out on YouTube as well. At some point of time I will get them from Facebook to YouTube, and I also will be looking at maybe connecting, because I think you can connect the broadcasts and broadcast on YouTube and Facebook at the same time, so I'll be looking into that as well. Thank you very much, and hopefully we will be the winners. Bye.